Hello, and welcome from all of us here at Mason Frank International. We're here to share essential career and hiring trends within the Salesforce community, featuring some exclusive insight from our upcoming Mason Frank Careers and Hiring Guide, Salesforce Edition. My name is Nick Schichtle. I'm the Executive Vice President here at Mason Frank, and I appreciate you taking some time out to join us. I think we've all seen a huge increase in demand for digital transformation, which comes with challenges and opportunities across the ecosystem. Organizations use Salesforce to help their businesses survive and thrive, which provides professionals with plenty of opportunity. However, the demand for talent is greater than the pool of talent, and thus challenge and opportunity coexist. Over the next 30 minutes or so, we'll use data from the latest Mason Frank Careers and Hiring Guide to paint a picture of what's needed to help one navigate and succeed in today's market conditions. Now, just before we go any further, we are recording today's session, so don't worry about taking notes, as we will mail all attendees a link, as well as the report itself. Okay, let's quickly run through what we'll cover today. First, brief introductions are in order, starting with my colleague and co-host, Tammy Broadnax. Then we'll move on to the Careers and Hiring Guide and why it's such a valuable resource. We'll then highlight some data from the survey itself and what that means related to career and hiring trends for the next year, as well as some key takeaways for you to consider. Finally, there'll be room to answer any questions you might have, so feel free to post them in the chat as we go along. We will answer them at the end of the session. So to get us started, let me introduce Tammy Broadnax, Associate Vice President and Head of U.S. Operations for Mason Frank.
I'm Tammy Broadnax, Head of Operations here at Mason Frank. I have over 25 years of experience working in the staffing industry. It's been a joy to be a part of the Mason Frank team for 2 months, but I'm no stranger to FRG and Salesforce, as I've been with the company for almost 3 years. My role here as Head of Operations is allowing me the opportunity to provide the tools, resources, training, and development to help our MFI team meet and exceed their goals, which is in turn gives me great joy. Recruitment is my passion. I love the fact that I have been a part of bringing phenomenal talent to our clients and the best opportunities to our candidates, guiding them to achieve their dream careers. The industry has brought me years of career satisfaction, and I look forward to continuing to grow here with the Mason Frank team.
Well, I think you can see why Tammy's on our team, and I'm thankful for that. Thank you, Tammy. So a little bit about myself. I'm a 20-year veteran of the workforce solutions industry, better known as recruitment. I have been fortunate to work with and for some of the largest and fastest growing professional recruitment firms in the world during my tenure, which has prepared me for my role here at Frank Recruitment Group and Mason Frank. To put it simply, I oversee the US practice with 160 of my dedicated and inspired colleagues at all levels of the organization. We work on the front lines of talent assessment and acquisition each day and partner with some of the best companies in the world and some of the top Salesforce talent in North America. And it's a privilege to do so. What about Mason Frank? For those who don't know us well, here's a quick overview as to who we are and what Mason Frank does. First, we are a niched recruitment company, fully dedicated to Salesforce opportunity and talent. In fact, we're the largest in the world. We have 279 consultants based in 20 offices around the world. So from New York to Tokyo, Berlin to Melbourne, we don't just know Salesforce, we know the local markets around the world too. Day in, day out, we work solely with Salesforce partners and customers, helping to deliver great Salesforce talent. Now, since 2010, we've placed over 6,000 professionals across organizations around the world, from small to medium companies, enterprise size, Fortune 500 companies, to ISVs and partners. We have partnered with thousands of different organizations. We know the marketplace as well as anyone. Not only do we assist companies who use Salesforce, We use it daily ourselves. With more than 1,700 licenses, we're one of Salesforce's largest customers. We know the value of using a CRM, how to get the most from it, and why hiring the right people is essential to success. We have experience with a range of Salesforce products, from Einstein to Pardot. This obsession with Salesforce, both the platform and the ecosystem, places Mason Frank in a unique position. We know how and where one fits in, and how to connect people with their ideal new hire or their dream opportunity. In fact, 85% of our candidates that we place remain with their employer for more than 2 years. In short, we're well placed to advise on the job marketplace when it comes to Salesforce. But enough about us. Let's take you through the Careers and Hiring Guide. The Mason Frank Careers and Hiring Guide, Salesforce Edition, or as it was known up to 2021, the Mason Frank Salesforce Salary Survey, has expanded content, which includes career advice from leading MVPs and experts within the ecosystem, as well as more practical advice from businesses from a range of voices, including several senior figures at Salesforce. For those not familiar with our guide, we survey Salesforce professionals around the globe in what is the largest independent survey of Salesforce professionals anywhere. This is the 9th year that we've surveyed people working within the Salesforce ecosystem of all levels to gauge their thoughts and feelings on issues that affect them, the products they use, the trends on the platform, and what motivates and demotivates them and causes them to move employers. We capture salary information to get the most accurate picture of Salesforce compensation. In total, we analyze over 150,000 data points to create our guide. This data is also studied and validated by a team of analysts to ensure its accuracy. So what's in it for you? You will be able to view benefits, certifications, workloads, issues facing your peers. This guide also includes a city-by-city salary breakdown. So wherever you are, whatever you do, you and your team can validate your position and circumstances against the market. This is an industry-leading resource that provides a comprehensive view of all professionals. So whether you want to stand out as a candidate or an employer, this guide's for you. So let's dive in a bit. I think a great place to start is with the average experience of a Salesforce professional. What we found this year is that the average Salesforce professional has been working with the platform for 6 years, with 10 years of experience in technology. Interesting that there's a general trend towards where people cross-train into the technology rather than necessarily beginning their careers in Salesforce. Something to take note of as you compete for talent. Also, for those of you who may be newer to Salesforce technology and wondering how do you make up for perhaps a lack of experience, then the good news is that your career in Salesforce will take into consideration your certifications, your skill set, as well as your soft skills. In fact, let's take a look at what adds value to a Salesforce candidate now. So what makes someone a valuable candidate? We know that experience will undoubtedly play a part in one's value to an employer, but also exposure to various projects does as well. Big or small projects, large, medium, or small companies, certifications, various cloud exposure, etc. They all provide unique experiences and develop skill sets. So one's resume should certainly reflect all the work opportunity one has to offer. It's also worth mentioning that the vertical or industry one works in can make a difference. One thing we experience regularly from candidates is that when they become dissatisfied with an employer, they feel a change in industry as well as the employer is their likely solution. When in reality, industry-specific knowledge can be extremely valuable and desirable to other more appropriate employers.
So moving on to job satisfaction, this data is quite interesting for employers and candidates. For employees, it gives you a good picture of the sort of things your peers are also happy and unhappy about. Because let's face it, fixing your job satisfaction isn't as straightforward as you would think. For example, training and development scores lowest in terms of satisfaction. So if that's important to you, then you need to inquire about this when you're looking at your next opportunity. Ask yourself, is your potential employer setting time aside or even paying for your certifications? Do they have access to your resources to help you learn more about Salesforce? Similarly, if your employer looking to stand out when hiring Salesforce professionals, are you doing these things? Are you considering your company culture, your work-life balance, your training and development? Are you looking to improve in these areas to attract the best talent in the market? You can see how few people were dissatisfied with their working hours as COVID changed the landscape and gave most professionals a much better work-life balance. This was a major shift in how employers viewed flexible hours and remote work. So it's really important that employers are looking at the assets their company offers that will make a difference and help them stand out above their competitors. Perhaps more interesting still for employers is the data on why candidates are looking to move to a new role. I think it's easy to look at the top answer, salary, and see it's financially driven. And has historically been the case, but look at the second and third reason. And I think the top three reasons somewhat go together. So a lack of salary increase on its own can be concerning, but when you see that it's also tied into professionals wanting to be challenged, have career growth, and professional opportunities, all these things will be going together and end up with a pay increase. So I think the most important thing for any Salesforce employer is going to be around engagement and development pathways. What you're doing to keep your team focused on their journey with you. Because if they don't know what their next career step is or how they will get there within their current company, then they will look to achieve their goals elsewhere. It's also interesting that despite most people being satisfied with their working hours, as we mentioned in the last slide, that there are still a lot of professionals that are concerned about their work-life balance. So if you aren't offering remote work or flexible working hours, then those people and those employees will be unhappy and will move on eventually. What I will say specifically on these last two slides around job satisfaction and looking to change roles on the employer side, attract and retain talent, and this is this. Obviously, here at Mason Frank, we're always going to try and work with you closely to ensure that you find your perfect role or your perfect candidate. It is valuable to have these stats to know what is driving employee satisfaction. So as a candidate, being able to say to an employer that you want these things, you want to, for example, be able to feel like you have healthy work-life balance, that you're less stressed, or you want career growth, but you don't see the pathway there. For an employer who is able to offer these things will help you stand out as an employer. Knowing what your company offers and selling your job based on these things will also help you. There's no getting away from, the salary being the headline story, but newspapers aren't just made up of headlines. And there's more to earning more money than simply finding an employer to pay it. So we've spoken about Salesforce professionals wanting to feel challenged and to be able to learn and become certified. So I thought it'd be interesting to take a look at some of the statistics we have from this year's guide, specifically around training and certifications. First, let's look at why that matters. 78% of professionals hold at least one certification, with 90% believing they help them stand out in a competitive job market. And that's not just about making them more attractive to other employers, because someone with a wider skill set is also more valuable to you as an employer. So investing in education for your team isn't just going to leave you with empty desk in a year or 18 months time. It's actually going to give you a team of people that are highly motivated, but even more importantly, have a wider range of skills to be able to be more productive and drive further innovation. That's why so many employers invest in their team certifications, with almost three-quarters employers having paid either in full or part of the certifications for their employees. If you aren't paying for your team's certifications or perhaps don't have the budget to do so, I think this makes it quite clear that you need to be getting incredibly creative to try and make up for this. Whether that's through trying to contribute in part or creating a study program where you create time in someone's schedule if they want to obtain their certifications on their own. So in this scenario, they invest the money and you're investing in their time. There really is no getting away from the fact that for employers, not being invested in your team's development when it comes to certifications will make you stand out for the wrong reasons. And if you're a candidate working for an employer that isn't offering you that support and it's a sticking point for you, then it's worth being aware that there are organizations that will invest in your development and in your development as a professional. For employers, it's worth keeping in mind that gaining a certification usually comes with an expected increase in pay. But as we covered previously, that is to be expected when you're upskilling your team. They add more value to your organization as a result, increasing their skill set, and so they need to be compensated for it. One thing I do want to mention before going on to the question section is some of the resources that you or your team can use to stay up to date with Salesforce Beyond certifications. Obviously, trailhead badges and certifications are going to be more valuable to you in terms of actual career development. But if you're looking to keep up to date with various changes and updates and want a more general overview, it's really worth checking out the list that we have below. Obviously, if you're an experienced professional, you've likely been doing all of these things already. Although hopefully there may be a few ideas on here that may be new, some new places that you can go to for learning resources. But if you're a little less experienced, I can't really stress enough how important self-learning is and making that sort of effort to keep up to date with the ecosystem you're working in. By employers looking closely at hard skills, so things like certifications you have, they're quantifiable. Soft skills such as a hunger to improve and develop, wanting to learn more and self-study are incredibly desirable and harder to demonstrate. I always think lunchtime is a good indicator of your soft skills. Don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting not eat lunch, but what I'd say is once or twice a week, what are you doing at lunch? Are you checking out Salesforce bin logs or maybe playing in your sandbox environment with something? These are hard things to quantify in the hiring process itself, but it's about having that mindset where you're invested in the technology beyond just locking in and out. And it's the sort of attitude that has a trickle down effect into everything that you do. If you're reading up and finding out what's happening on the platform, you'll want to get your hands dirty and play with it. And you'll be trying to get as many trailhead badges as you can, or pestering your boss to support you with certifications. That's usually followed by wanting to move to an employer who will support you in that and is happy that they can offer you that chance to build the base that you have. So I say these resources aren't necessarily about getting you straight in at your next job with a great big pay raise. They're about helping you get started in terms of improving yourself as a candidate. If you're perhaps satisfied thinking you're okay with 10 to 15 trailhead badges, but maybe don't need to be certified, or that there's no rush, there is. And these are some fantastic resources to help you kickstart your learning path in Salesforce. Similarly, as an employer, encouraging and facilitating your team's desire to learn will help you stand out, as well as allowing them to develop their skills that will benefit both you and your organization. However, that very firmly brings us towards the end of the presentation section of today's event. So with that in mind, in a moment, we'll move on to the question and answer session. If you have any questions you wish to ask, please add them in the chat box and we'll address them in just a moment. Please feel free to ask us anything you like, whether it's something specific to the presentation or if it's something further to either your Salesforce career or any staffing questions or challenges you'd like to know more on. However, let's just look at 3 quick takeaways from today's session. I think first is that certifications matter. They are a brilliant way to put a cast iron stamp on your resume that verifies your knowledge. But even if you can't do that, there are a number of other ways you can contribute to develop. Learning and development should be a part of your weekly work, not something to try and fit in outside of that. As an employer, your employees are looking to become certified, to expand on their Salesforce knowledge, and to expect you to contribute towards that. For candidates, you've seen the statistics on how many of your peers are certified and why they matter. They're essentially the most verifiable way to prove you can do what you say you can. So be aware that if you're applying for roles without them, you're going to be in a minority when a recruiter or hiring manager is looking through your application. Next is knowing what you want and can offer. There's no getting away from there having been a shift in the last year or two in terms of employees being much more focused on what they want from an employer. There's no one specific reason that candidates are looking to move on, even if they often cover similar themes. But as a candidate, if you're feeling like it may be time for you to explore other opportunities, then know what it is that's pushing you away and what you specifically want from your next role or organization. With that, you may struggle to find that fulfillment when you do move on. And for employers, make sure you know what's great or even unique about your business when attracting talent. For example, work hard, play hard mantra may put off candidates that want a healthier work-life balance, but it will also attract some people that are wired that way, or a culture that is focused on work-life balance will appeal to others. There's no right or wrong answer here, but getting it right will help you attract the right people and keep them for longer. And finally, one similar note, specifically for candidates, look at where you add value. Sure, for organizations, you can add value to an ambitious candidate by having clear career development paths, but for candidates, looking at where your specializations are, whether that's a specific vertical or type of organization, find a passion for something within the Salesforce ecosystem and look for opportunities that mirror that. Have that inherent instinct for what a healthcare organization needs from a Salesforce implementation. For example, it's very difficult to learn and will make you incredibly valuable stacked against other potential candidates. Being dissatisfied with an employer is different to being unhappy with your niche. Of course, it's not always the case, but be aware that your experience will often add value to you.
Thank you, Tammy. That was great. So there's a reasonably quick reveal of some of the data from this year's Careers and Hiring Guide. Unfortunately, we simply don't have the time to cover every piece of insight from the survey. So I'd really encourage you to head to masonfrank.com to download your copy. There's so much information in there beyond what we've covered today. However, we do have time left for a few questions, and Tammy and I are happy to attempt to answer them for you. If we can't, we're happy to find out and get back to you as soon as possible. Let's jump to this chat and see what we have so far. Okay, well, let's get to our Q&A. We already have a couple thrown in there, so that's great. I did have one that I got just prior to the meeting for someone who couldn't attend, who was really asking what are the kind of key items of the guide. I would maybe call them pillars that I can look for, that I should expect when I get the guide. And so let me address that first and foremost. So there's kind of 4 pillars of our guide, because it's pretty extensive, and there's tons of information, data, and detail in there for you. But the first pillar, I would say, is the skills gap within the ecosystem, and what impacts that is having on organizations and their business objectives. So that's kind of our first pillar. The second pillar is we profile the latest skills and certifications that professionals hold. And I know Tammy just spoke quite a bit about that. Third, would we discuss the attraction and retention of talent, so the hiring side of it, and the major staffing challenges faced by organizations. And then our fourth pillar in the guide is we provide insights into diversity, equity, and inclusion in the ecosystem, so that we can embody Salesforce vision of change to change the world for the better and empower everyone to succeed. We also, kind of lastly, we highlight key roles within the career spotlight chapter of the guide. So pretty valuable information throughout, with, again, tons of details. So let me jump to the chat here real quick. Tammy, I'll take the first one. It looks like from Michael J. I believe Mason Frank is part of a larger organization that does recruiting for other technologies. I find it once before, was wondering what the name of the parent company is. Okay, so yes, Mason Frank is one of several placement search firms, if you will, that provide permanent and contract solutions for talents and company. Mason Frank obviously is the Salesforce tech. We have Nigel Frank, Nelson Frank, Anderson Frank, Washington Frank. And I think I've got them all. Anyway, and they all represent different technology like NetSuite or AWS or Dynamics or Azure. So they have their own niched tech that they support. And obviously Mason Frank is Salesforce. So hope that answered your question, Michael. All right. We scroll on. Tammy, you want to take the next one? It looks like is it Andre?
All right, so let's see here. Andrew, what are hiring trends you're seeing across the country, percentage of increase in territories and industries, and salary trends and different roles and regions? So just to kind of give you guys an answer to that, what we're seeing right now as it relates to hiring for Salesforce professionals, number one, the cloud space is the fastest growing, industry as it relates to technology. And Salesforce is a cloud-based technology. So that number one tells you that it's on an uptick, right? So it's not slowing down. Hiring is not slowing down as it relates to Salesforce. What we have seen, across the markets as it relates to some of the hiring trends, it looks like right now what we've seen is that there's definitely some things that are happening with interviews. The interview process has changed greatly since, over the past year with COVID and all that good stuff. Clients are really moving faster on talent because they see that there is a shortage of Salesforce professionals. So there's a very high demand of those individuals across all of the US. We've seen this. So the interview time has decreased, and the way we communicate has changed as well, as it relates to the interview process and just, engaging with candidates and clients. So the times of interviewing folks face-to-face has changed. I would say over 90% of our interviews that we've had have been via Teams or Zoom. So that landscape has changed greatly also. So there's been some great changes that I think have, helped as it relates to remote work, where, a couple of years ago, remote work was not as in high demand, where now remote work is really standing out. And I would say the majority of our clients have been moving in that direction, and really to retain the top talent in the market. Those are some things that we've seen that, key, changes from, remote work to, interviews being held online versus face to face. Those are some of the key changes that we've seen, and definitely not a slowdown as it relates to hiring in this space. There's still a very high demand for Salesforce professionals, and I don't see that changing in the near future at all.
And I would second that to Andrew's question, is that obviously there's quite a few stats that may get you more specific percentages and regional trends and things of that nature within the guide that launches actually next week. I believe the 10th is the launch date for that. So more details on that, Andrew, you'll find in the guide when you have your, get your hands on it. And I think that addresses Anthony's question too, about when it'll be available. It should launch next week. I believe it's Monday the 10th. You can start receiving that information. So Jenny asked, I think Tammy, you were addressing this to some degree. Are you seeing a slowdown in demand for Salesforce talent, given all the talk surrounding the looming recession? I would say to Tammy's point, the demand for talent hasn't changed. If anything, it continues to increase, which if you're talent, it's great. If you're competing for talent, it's a little bit tougher. I will say that where we have seen a bit of slowing is in certain industries and certain companies. The financial concerns, not the demand for talent hasn't changed, but the financial concerns around hiring talent at this time has put a little bit of a slowing trend in certain markets, certain companies, in certain industries. So I would say that is true to some degree. All right, keep scrolling down here. Manish has a question. Applying to your website through email, don't seem to get a response to my application. Okay, well, Manish, sorry to hear that. We do get hundreds, if not thousands, of applicants every week. And so if you don't mind, you have my email address there on the slide. Just send your information to me directly, and I will make sure it gets in the proper hands today. All right, so we apologize for your experience there. What can someone do who doesn't have hands-on experience to stand out? I think that's a great question. Tammy, do you want to tackle that one? Because that'll get you into your certification piece that you were.
Sure. Absolutely. I'll be happy to answer this question. The first step is definitely getting your certifications. You can start there, right? So if you don't have that hands-on experience, then you definitely want to leverage those certifications. Going to Salesforce, there's a ton of resources out there. Of course, your Trailhead badges as well are ways of for you to at least get some experience or education underneath your belt. I would start there. I would definitely start with the certifications, and then of course, hopefully there's an opportunity for internships for you. That's another good way for you to gain experiences through identifying internships for you to gather some exposure and experience within the technology Salesforce space.
Yeah, and if I can piggyback off that, I think there's a soft skill element here too that's really important. If you're lacking experience, and you're working through the certification and self-training processes, and invest, the soft skills on display that you can display in interviews, et cetera, really kind of show the dedication to improve. And that's appealing to employers. Soft skills are one thing employers rarely can teach. And so, it's you kind of have it or you don't. You can certainly improve it. So I would work on communication skills, project management, problem solving. These are the types of things that are equally as valuable to employers, and will be a bit of a calling card until you get the experience you're looking for. So I would certainly advise you to get started on Trailhead immediately if you aren't. There are some nonprofits that you can use to see if they use Salesforce, right? And maybe you can lend a hand to their organization as a way to gain some experience, really immerse yourself into the Salesforce community. There are user groups, community groups, events, blogs. You can even follow people I thought Tammy did an excellent job on the slide that showed all the different ways you can kind of immerse yourself. So make sure that you're a part of the world, the ecosystem of Salesforce, and that will continue to develop the value of your candidacy. Okay. So, okay, I'm checking out your website. I don't see a link to the download to the guide. Yeah, I'm asking about that right now as to, as a member of signing up for this webinar, you will be sent the link to download. So I know that to be true. So for Ali, this will be coming to your inbox. If not, again, reach out to me or Tammy, and we will make sure we forward it to you as soon as it's available. Okay, Erica has a question. How can someone that has tons of hands-on experience but no certifications get noticed? I think that's a fair question. Tammy, do you want to tackle that one?
Sure. As it relates to getting noticed, right? So it's giving yourself exposure, right? Networking, making sure that you're very present on LinkedIn, and utilizing the LinkedIn network, plus communicating with your peers, right? If you've got tons of years of experience, networking with your own personal peer network will definitely get you more exposure as well. And if you're very experienced, then your experience usually will make you stand out. But obtain a certification, right? If you don't have one now, reach out to your current organization, see if they're offering reimbursement for certifications. And if they're not offering reimbursements for certifications, maybe they will give you time during the day to study and prepare for those certifications while working, since they're not paying for it. But try to obtain a couple of certifications. Is definitely going to help you, especially if you've already got several years of experience. It will do nothing but make you that much more marketable if you do obtain a couple of certifications. But network, and work your personal connections as well.
Wonderful, thank you. I want to go back to Ali on the question of when the link is available. That'll be available on Monday the 10th as well. So again, if you don't get that because you being a part of this webinar, you should be sent that no later than that day. But if for any reason you don't get that, please again reach out to Tammy or I, and we'll make sure we forward it to you directly. But apparently they will be available on the 10th, the link and the guide. All right. Let's see, scrolling. How many recruiters versus candidates on this call? That's an excellent question. Actually, we don't have many of our Salesforce colleagues on the call. We have a few kind of behind the scenes that are working the webinar, and Tammy and myself. But as far as our consultants and our recruiters, et cetera, they are not attending this call. This call was meant for candidates and employers, so they can get a kind of a head start in a Snapchat or snapshot, I should say, of the survey and some of the key results from it. So this is all employers and candidates, and I don't know the mix from that. So apologize for that. Okay, I have one question that was sent to me that I'll answer as we see if there's any more coming. If this is such valuable information, why are you giving it away for free? I think that's a great question. The simple answer, we do this for really the same reason anyone working in the ecosystem shares any sort of insight. If we're going to be considered a trusted voice in the Salesforce community, then we need to provide our insight and share our knowledge. We're kind of feel obligated to contribute in that way where we can add value. We add value to the employee, to the employer, in our area of expertise. This is what we do. So hopefully when it comes to making a hiring decision or a career decision in the future, people will appreciate the expertise we have, the value we can add, and reach out to us. Think of us and contact us. That's kind of the desire. Ultimately, we want this ecosystem to grow, right? It's a great platform. It's good for us. So contributing to the growth in whatever way we can is essential in our minds. So that's the reason we do it. And our employers, our partners, and the talent we represent really love the data. And it's a great way to connect with them outside of a job search or an employee search. So there's our answer to that one. That was a good question. All right. I think we covered most of the questions. Was there anyone else out there that has something that Tammy and I can try to assist you with today?
I think we have one more. It looks like a question from. I can't. The name is Parahith. You have Salesforce. You're Salesforce certified and have 3+ years of experience as Salesforce developer. And I'm assuming that you might be open to opportunities. So we'll definitely connect with you after this call and see if we can answer any questions that you may have.
Very good. All right. Well, if that's it, and again, let me wrap things up then real quick. So first and foremost, thank you. Thank you for joining us, for taking time to and part and attending. I hope it adds value to you and your organization as you look forward to 2023. If you have any more questions, obviously our contact information is displayed. Please feel free to reach out to us directly. Finally, a reminder that we will mail you a link to the recording as of Monday, or a link to the recording of this event, excuse me. So if you missed anything or wish to revisit anything that was shared on this webinar, you have that available for yourself. So keep your eyes out for that. See what else. You'll be able to get certainly more insight as you get into the actual guide itself. Again, it is substantial. I encourage you to take your time with it. There's quite a bit of information there. I think it's laid out very well and easy to peruse, depending on if you're an employer and looking for that type of data, or if you're a candidate looking for that type of data. So I think it's laid out very, very nicely. So again, thank you for your time. Thanks for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day.